Hello there, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I am your host, Rich Owens, and joining me this week, we have two of my bestest pals in the entire world, literally all of it. I've checked. We have the United City FM, and we also have the returning White Callum. Hey, look at this for a dream team on a Sunday morning. Callum, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm great, thanks, Rich. I thought I was going to be able to host this today. I mean, I don't know what's happened because everyone sees. I mean, Kev has had so many hosting opportunities. It just doesn't seem fair at this stage. You know, Jeb's hosted, and I mean, I believe you've hosted a couple of times. So I'd actually like.
I've had a go.
I'd like to host myself if that's okay. So can we just pretend that didn't happen? And I'm going to start the podcast. Okay, perfect. Right. Oh, sorry, Kev. No, I'm steamrolling this. Hello, family, friends, and Football Manager fans. This is another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I'm your host, Y Callum, and today I'm joined with two wonderful individuals. I'm joined by former host Rich Owens. Hi, Rich. And I'm also joined by former host Kev, the United City FM. How are you today, Kev?
How comes when I host it, the theme tune kicked in within one word of doing it, and he's got this far? I demand. Oh, this is ridiculous. I'm. That's it.
Problem I had there, I got thrown straight away and also angered by just how seamlessly good he was at it. And, oh no.
Too many words beginning with F. He's thought about this far
alliteration.
Really has, hasn't he? Yeah. Okay.
So on this week's episode, we're going to be talking all of
Still going.
I'll hand the baton over. Here's the baton. Here you go, Rich. Can you take it, please?
He's going to club you with it if you're not careful.
Yeah. Honestly. I'm furious. I'm absolutely furious. Do you have any idea how long it's taken to get rid of that whole who's taking Rich's job this week shtick from the Rich and Tony days?
Back.
And that's gone. I was confident that it had gone. I've said to my therapist this week, I was like, look, I'm no longer. They're like, Rich, can you, are you still worried about other hosts? Are there other hosts in the room with us now? I'm like, no, they're not. Everything is fine. I've outlasted everybody. I've outlasted Diz. I've outlasted Dr. Benji. I've outlasted the lot of them. And then Callum strolls in here with his competence and his diction and just makes me all uncomfortable again. You absolute swine.
In the comments of today's video, if you could please put who you'd rather be host and tell us why it's Jeb.
Yeah.
If you can all tell us why.
This week's comment section, why is Rich bad at hosting, essentially? Thank you, Callum. Glad you're back.
No problem.
Yeah, glad you're back, mate. Glad you're back. Kev, how are you, pal?
Rich, what you and I talk about in your therapy sessions is between us, by the way.
Yeah, you shouldn't have disclosed
sharing that on the podcast. Come on. You know how that works.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
But yeah,
Sorry.
other than that, I'm doing all right, thank you. I am, furious. So that means I've got a smiley happy face on because that's how I work. But I'm all right. I had a good week. I streamed some. We did some Football Managers loveliness, and it's a Sunday morning, and you guys are here, and that's one of the best times of the week. So it's all good. Looking forward to the next, however long.
We never know.
We never know.
No.
We never know. Time is an abstract concept when it comes to pod records. It really, really is. But we're going to have a good time. We're going to have a good time. I've officially decided.
So before we started recording the pod, Rich, about 5 minutes ago, would you have said that you're okay this week? I mean, obviously things have changed in the last 5 minutes, but...
Yeah, 5 minutes ago I was great. 5 minutes ago I was doing so well, and now I'm genuinely nervous.
So you should be. So you should.
I should be.
But surely that's how you should be in every podcast. You should be on the edge, because that's where the best content comes, really. It's like they say for runners, you should need a wee before you go on a run, shouldn't you? Like, just if you're doing a 100-meter sprint, need a wee, because then you might wee yourself, and you're always on that edge. Some do, and then they slip off. It's a whole thing. They slip over on the wee. I feel like I said wee too many times. Can we move on?
No, we absolutely can't. Right, lads, scrap everything on the docket for this week. I would like to hear more on Callum's motivational sprinting techniques.
Well, what I mean, I tend to just number ones, not number twos. If you really need it, and the bladder starts tensing. You know how it is when it's like you feel like if you get up from your chair, things could happen. So you just sort of have to accept that you're just going to be in that chair for a while, a little bit like that. And then when you're on the starting post, you're down. If can anyone do the starting gun for me? That's okay. Right.
I was going to say, can anybody get into the starting pose for me? No, I can't.
Bang.
Right. So I start running. Yeah. I'm
okay.
Going. Yeah. It's going well. But then I realize I need the toilet. So I just, excuse me, sorry. And then I go backwards and I'm off to the latrine then. And then that's it. End of race.
Okay. End of race. Done.
I don't know what's going on, Rich.
No.
This is
gone a bit weird.
Yeah.
It's gone a bit weird early doors, which I'm here for. I'm absolutely here for. This is wonderful. So how many races have you won, Callum? if you had to...
Well, I mean, anywhere between 0 and 10, I'd say.
An amount.
Literally anywhere. Yeah. I mean, if I had to hold the amount of wins I have within my hand, this would be pretty accurate. Is what I'd say. And that's good for the audio listeners. They'll understand.
Great, because it's a mystery, and they'll
never know.
YouTube
there could be 10 things in my hand right now.
There could be. He could be holding 10 winners' medals.
I'm not. Only
He's
9.
not.
Only 9.
Only 9. Only 9. There you go. See, there's your powerful mental image to endure for the rest of the podcast, friends. Just imagine Callum on the starting blocks with like 7 2-litre empty bottles of like Evian next to him. That he's just.
Is this the weirdest start to a podcast we've had so far? Because I feel quite delirious at the moment.
It's up there.
I'm not sure what's going on.
It's definitely up there, isn't it? It's definitely
I'm
up there.
having a fever dream.
Yeah. The worst thing is, I think it's all my fault as well. And I'd like to formally apologise to the listeners, to both Rich and to Kev. I would hate for my first hosting to go this poorly. So obviously, I'd like to put us back on track now. So co-host Rich Owens, would you like to carry us on here?
He's still leaning into this, isn't he? He's still leaning into this. He's completely taken it off the rails and then tried to bring it back on while also just claiming the power back, which is quite incredible.
I thought that was quite a good segue, if I'm honest.
Thanks, Kev. Thanks, Kev. And that's why you're my second in command.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good. That was what I was expecting this morning. A coup. Fantastic.
Mutiny.
Oh, it was inevitable. It was inevitable, wasn't it? It's the first podcast we've ever recorded where I finish just having to walk the plank. There's nobody here to make me do it, but I'm still going to have to.
We've had that plank installed for ages, though, Rich. It's about time we actually utilised it. I mean, we put it on the funds, so we have to actually find a use.
There you go. That's what your Patreon money is paying for. A plank.
Yeah.
Edged a singular plank. The looks I got at home base. Going through the checkout with that. They're looking at you also. It's like, are you going to walk the plank? No. Stupid idea.
Absolutely not.
The fact that I'm dressed as a pirate is completely unrelated. Thank you very much.
Do you reckon anyone's ever done that? Could have bought a singular plank in a pirate costume. That'd be hilarious. Wait, this is so derailed. Why?
More to the point. Do you think anybody's now listening? With the fear of making it sound like I'm trying to take over and host a pod. Some football manager.
Excuse me, Kev. Don't overstep the mark. This is my podcast.
Yeah. I understand what I did. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, cool. So anyway, lads, have you ever played a game called Football Manager?
No.
Nope. Okay, brilliant. Neither have I. Good night, everybody.
Good pod.
Good. Right, Football Manager. We should probably talk about it in some capacity, given the name of the podcast, shouldn't we?
I set some therapy now, if that's helpful.
Yeah, we're back. Yeah, let's skip the first two. Let's go to the end. Kev, I'm so sorry. Sundays are supposed to be your safe space because Mondays and/or Thursday nights get a bit weird.
You're not kidding.
They have a tendency to go a little bit strange. So Sundays are meant to be the normal ones, and I'm so sorry this has happened. I set the lads a bit of homework this week. because sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. This week's homework, I was having a little think because I've one of my favourite parts of an FM save is your annual youth intake. I love me an annual youth intake. And there's, you get your hopes up, you get your initial reporters like, oh, there's a couple of strikers coming through that could be the next big thing at the club. Oh, there's a couple of centre backs coming through that look like they've got a chance to break into that first team. And you're like, yes, come on. And then they arrive. And you're like, oh, what metrics are you measuring me against? Because these players are getting nowhere near my or anybody's first team ever. They're stinky. And it got me to thinking, when these players are coming through, there are, I would say, a specific number of kind of key attributes that you look at for some of these players and you look at for some of these positions. And then it got me to thinking, if you had the opportunity to create essentially your perfect player on Football Manager, we all know that the pinnacle of a player's ability when it comes to their what they can do in certain assets of the game is the perfect 20 out of 20 in an attribute, in an individual attribute. It got me to thinking, if you could choose 5 attributes for a player in a certain position that could be the perfect 20 out of 20, what would they be? I really wanted to know, which is why I asked the guys what their thoughts on this were. And we're going to hear them now. We're going to explore this together. Now, there is a caveat here, because of course there is. We have decided that the 2 positions we're going to talk about today, being, of course, striker and centre-back, because I mentioned them in the intro, for these 2 positions, there are a couple that just seem like they're a foregone conclusion. Of course, they're going to be on the list. So for a striker, that's finishing and composure. And for a centre-back, we decided tackling and marking. Those are the ones that we're guaranteed to say. So we're excluding those from our list. But I thought it'd be interesting to kind of get a little bit more of an insight into what we think makes the perfect player for a certain position on Football Manager. I have a bit of an idea where I think Kev is going to go with this because, having spent a lot of time. Oh, I think I do. Having spent time with you in the network save in multiple transfer windows, Kev has a type, shall we say.
Don't tell my wife.
I'm assuming it's her. I'm assuming you look at her, it's like she would do a cracking job up top in my Spurs team. She'd be fantastic. And rightly so. Rightly so. Kev.
Yes.
Take us away, pal. We're looking at strikers. Let's start off by looking at strikers. Obviously, excluding your finishings and your composures. If you could pick 5 attributes, and they could be any from the technicals, the mentals, the physicals, to be a perfect 20. And let's say, for the sake of argument, with these players, all the other good attributes are average. So if we're looking at a Premier League player, everything else is around the 10, 11 mark maybe, but you've got these 5 standout attributes that are going to make or break this player. Where are you starting, mate?
Oh, well, I had to think long and hard about this one because when you said it's going to be centre back and striker, and we were talking about striker particularly, I did think, which way do I want to go? As a young player coming through, do I want the big meaty target forward type as my key number 1 type of striker? Or do I want my youngsters to be the more in and around the box, finishing off opportunities type of striker? And I felt like, for me personally, I have gone the opposite route than you think I might have. I'm more prepared to go and find the big burly bloke, because I feel like that comes with a little bit of experience and a little bit of muscle and a bit of, development. And I'm more interested in my young strikers coming through with being the sort of fox in the box type and having a little bit more of that around them. So I've gone that route with my 5 suggestions, although big meaty blokes doing jumpy things is a very, very cool thing. So bear that in mind. So my first one actually is off the ball. It's that thing of, if you are not in the right place at the right time, you cannot finish the right opportunities. And I think it's a vital component of anything. So if you can find a youngster with a little bit of off the ball, then you at least know they're going to be attempting to get in those right spots at the right moment. And so that is my first one.
Okay. Well, you've thrown me, Kev. You've thrown me. This is going in a very, very different direction already. And that's based on the intro as well. My goodness gracious me. Okay, off the ball. It makes a lot of sense. Don't get me wrong. It makes complete sense to me, but it's not necessarily where I thought you were going to be putting yourself in this context.
Well, I like to keep you on your toes.
You absolutely have. I feel like I've just drank 7 massive bottles of water. I'm terrified. Callum, what about you? Are you going to completely throw me for a loop as well now?
Well, without being boring here, I have done my list, and I think an attribute that is incredibly important for a striker, and probably the most important one outside of finishing composure, is off the ball. Now, I wonder whether to reorganize it, but I do believe there is no. I would go as far to say I think off the ball might be more important than finishing in composure for a striker, because if you are not in the position to put the ball in the back of the net, the finishing is irrelevant. And the composure is irrelevant because you're not going to be there to get the contact on the ball. Some of the best strikers in the world right now are the ones who are just always there. They're just always there. And that is because they are so good off the ball. They're difficult to mark. They're constantly moving. They're in the right areas. The off the ball thing on Football Manager says it reflects the player's ability to move when not in possession of the ball, making themselves available to receive a pass in a dangerous position. Like, that's where you want your striker. You want your striker getting the ball in the right areas. So I'd like to confirm that Kev was correct. Off the ball should be the first choice. What about you, Rich?
Now, you see, I've gone for a slightly different approach.
Oh, you're wrong then, I'm afraid.
There you go. I'm objectively wrong, as always. Well, that's why I don't host the podcast. I do. I absolutely do. I absolutely do. It's still my podcast.
We'll see.
Sounds like a threat. See, for the audio listeners, Callum is stroking a dog like a Bond villain. Oh, we'll see. We'll see. Now, I've taken a lot of the mental attributes into consideration when making this decision, but I don't think without the mental attributes, and off the ball, spoiler alert, is going to be one that's on my list, but I don't think that is viable if you don't have the physical ability to get into those positions. I think if you've got a striker and they're not going to be quick or agile enough to get into those key positions, try as you may, wouldn't it be great if they'd been able to if they'd been able to just find that little pocket of space and become available for that pass. But if they're too slow and old and knackered, they're not going to be able to. So at the risk of sounding like just a basic human, my first key attribute for a striker is pace. If you can make somebody quick enough to have the opportunity, because I don't think even if you're off the ball isn't that great, if you're quick enough to find yourself in those spaces, you can still create chances for yourself. So I'm going straight off the bat. I'm going for a bit of pace. I would like them to have 20 out of 20 in the running, so they are very, very fast. So regardless of the other attributes, they're going to have the opportunity to get themselves in certain positions on the pitch. So straight away we've contradicted each other. Straight away, which is key. It was never going to happen because we're all such like-minded human beings. Kev, shock me. What's number 2? Because again, I'm very surprised with your first one. Going to shock me. They're not all jumping reach. That's really weird.
No, it's weird, isn't it? So my next one is we have a striker that is now in the right spot, but he needs to be able to do something with the ball once the ball reaches him. And the first thing that you think about for that, myself, is first touch, because you are in and around that penalty box. You've got big burly defenders around you. You've got limited space. And I thought, if I choose first touch, then I'm going to have to watch Callum squirm in the corner of my screen because he's chosen first touch for his second one as well. And that was my thinking this morning when I was doing my picks. So I've gone first touch. I actually think it's really vitally important because you're going to have to be deadly in the box. And whether your first touch is to shoot or it's to hold and then shoot, you've got to be able to do that pretty well. So that's my next one. Go on, Callum.
Yep.
I just I've not made a list though, and I'm just copying you.
I'll let you go first next time.
Thanks. It'll be different the next one, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's first touch. It's got to be first touch, isn't it? So you're absolutely right. I mean, I agree with you on most things, Kev, and it seems like it's following here. First touch is so important. It is so important because sometimes that first touch could be putting the ball in the back of the net. You know, like there was a striker for Everton called Nikica Jelavic a few years ago. I want to say like 2012, that sort of time, where he was unbelievable at a first touch finish. And it became a running joke that if he took a touch, he wasn't going to score. It was almost like if he had time to think about it, he couldn't do it. But that first touch finish was so important. And I think for a striker, I think first touch is quite often seen as the control. So that's what they're doing. You know, it's that first touch of, oh, you're getting the ball. And it's that. But I also read it as a striker as that first touch of, you know, can you be placing that ball in the back of the net with your first touch? And I think for a lot of positions, first touch is absolutely invaluable. I think if you have that ability to take that good first touch and then you're gone, there's not really a position on the pitch that I wouldn't say that's important for. So it's important for strikers. So yeah, I'd go first touch.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I think it's an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? Because like I said, as soon as you said that first touch also incorporates like that first time to, you know, the ball's coming in, they're going to be able to hit it first time. I think Jelavic is a really, really good example of that, in fairness. See, when I think of, until you said that, when you started talking about first touch, in my head, I immediately go to somebody like a Dimitar Berbatov, who the amount of goals that they scored because their first touch was so good, it gave them the opportunity to like reset themselves and then get a shot off from positions you wouldn't normally expect players to be doing that from. But it is a really important one. I think first touch didn't make my list, interestingly enough, but now you've explained it, I'm genuinely thinking why it didn't, because it makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. I like that. So we've gone first touch, okay, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, interesting. I'm, again, because I'm basic, I'm sticking with physicals. I still think in this capacity, I think for me, the physicals are a little bit more important than some of the others, because again, I've tried to rank these in terms of importance as we go as well. So obviously I've got somebody who's very, very, very fast. I've gone for somebody who's very, very, very fast. I'm also going for somebody who is very, very, very agile. So I've gone for pace. And I've gone for agility because, again, based on the FM description of the agility attribute, the attribute reflects how well a player can start, stop, and move in different directions at varying levels of speed, both on and off the ball. So if you've got somebody that can run really, really, really fast and can literally turn on a sixpence, then that player is going to be giving themselves the opportunity to get into better goal-scoring positions than they are if they're a bit like, and it's going to take them, 17 hours to turn on the ball, like a certain Sheffield Wednesday striker normally does, unless he's playing on the Kev's Road to Legends team. Michael Smith, you big beefy man, you. Suddenly he's learnt how to drop the shoulder, normally because he's falling over, but no, in that capacity, he's really, really good at it. So yeah, I'm going pace and agility early doors because I think having exceptionally high attributes in both of those, it's giving your player the opportunity to get themselves into better goal scoring positions. And again, I think one of the things that we have to bear in mind in the background as well is that, we're talking about strikers, but also obviously you can't just put a striker on the pitch in Football Manager. You're having to give that striker an incredibly specific set of instructions as well, whether it's pressing forward, whether they're an advanced forward, whether they're a deep lying forward, whatever they may be. I think having high physicals in terms of pace and agility, I think it ticks a lot of boxes for most of those roles as well. So mine's very complete. Some might say complete forward, which is a role on FM. Who knows? Look at that. Look at it. Almost sounds like I know what I'm talking about. Have I got the job yet? Is it my job again? have I clawed this back?
So anyway, agility, right? Agility, I can tell you, is not something I use a great deal in any of my searches, which is really weird. I mean, occasionally I think I'll probably do for a goalkeeper, maybe for a tricky wide man as a sort of that type of player, but I don't think I've ever used it as a way to differentiate a striker. That's very interesting because, this is, again, showing how people approach the game differently, look at the attributes differently, and, make those choices through what they see. But agility is an interesting one for me. I'd love to know whether people in the comment sections feel the same as Rich or me in terms of whether they use it or they don't. Interesting one.
Absolutely. Please validate me. Please, comment section. I really need this. It's a really, really weird one, isn't it? It's something that, for context, the player that I'm looking at, I've got FM up on my screen at the moment, and the player that I'm looking at, just to refresh my memory about some of the, the roles and what some of the attributes do, is Samuel Eto'o from my Retro Barca save. And because he's already a player at the club, I haven't spent as much time kind of poring over his attributes as I have some of the other players in the players that I'm looking to sign, because he's just already there, and it's Samuel Eto'o, he's very, very good. He has obscenely high pace and agility. And when you actually look at some of the goals that he scored over the course of the save, where he's just been cutting inside and suddenly he's just gone the other way and he's just completely sold the defender. I can't think of, any player and any save I've had where I wouldn't want him to have the ability to do that. And he does it at such speed as well. I mean, Eto's got 19 pace and he's got 20 agility, which is, for me, what makes him so good. Actually, it's interesting. There's a really important attribute on here that I will tell you about Samuel Eto'o after we've talked about this, that it may shock you. Kev, where are you going for number 3?
Go Callum next.
All right, Callum, where are you going for number 3, my host?
So I've chosen a mental attribute. I've chosen a technical attribute. So I think it's time to choose a physical attribute.
Okay.
I am on the, bizarrely, what a surprise, on the side of Kev with agility. It's not something I tend to look for. However, I also have my FM save up right now, and my 2 strikers both have agility of 15, which in the Vanarama National League is pretty good. So obviously I do, without even realizing I searched for agility. But it's not agility I'm choosing. Now, pace and acceleration are a funny too, I think. And I think it's really... Acceleration obviously is more looking at like that 5 yards, so you're getting beyond someone that 5 yards, whereas pace is more general. And in an ideal world, I'd have them both. I think both are really valuable attributes, but for a striker, I disagree with you, Rich. Unless you've got acceleration in there, I think acceleration is far more important than pace, because I think that 5 yards is the difference between getting past a slow centre half. If you're just quick in general, a clever centre half can stop you. Like if you've got a centre half who can read the game, I'm not saying all the time, but it's that 5 yards. And I've played football at a very low level, and there are some people who might be big lads, but my word, over 5 yards they're fast, and it's difficult to catch them. Whereas someone who is genuinely quick and has that pace, you, as a defender, you can sort of give them 5 yards. You can sort of play into that a little bit more, but you can't with acceleration. It's a lot more difficult. So in my opinion, acceleration is the more important attribute. So I am going for acceleration as my 3rd choice.
Okay. I can see where you're coming from. I think you're wrong, clearly.
Fair enough.
But yeah, which is fair. It's subjective, isn't it? It's subjective until we disagree. I can see your argument for it. I think one of the players that, especially over the last couple of FMs, that always sticks out in my mind in terms of having that really diametrically opposed kind of pace and acceleration is Dan Burn. Because when you look at Dan Burn, especially when you look at, drafting or anything like that, he's what, 6'7" is Dan Burn, maybe even 6'8", big lad. And you go, oh, that pace isn't terrible, actually, for a big boy. But then you look at the acceleration. It's like, oh, no. It's going to take him quite a long time to get up to that comparatively higher pace, isn't it? Whereas for me, I think if you've got a combination of pace and agility, it doesn't matter how fast you are in that initial 5 yards, because you've got the opportunity to send a player completely the wrong way. So, there might be, if a defender, for example, has good acceleration, they're going to be good at that initial burst of speed to try and keep up with you. But if you've completely lost them, if they're just covering a yard in the opposite direction because you've just cut back completely the different way, then they're not going to be able to just, turn back around and catch you up again. So I can see how they'd both be important, but I, again, think I'm correct. Kev, what about you, mate? Where are you going for number 3?
So once you got off the ball and first touch, I think when you talk about acceleration and pace, they're very different things. And pace is the long distance. And have you heard this before in this podcast? As Callum just said this, I'm going for strength. I think strength in the box, when you've got big burly blokes around you, whether you're little and compact or a big burly striker or whatever, just having that ability to be in the right spot, have a good first touch, but also be able to hold your own and protect yourself and the ball from everybody in those confined spaces can be quite important. So that's the direction that I've decided to go in. We're going strength.
This is the first time I disagree with you. And strength is a funny attribute, I think, especially in the modern day game. You have got an awful lot of weak players who win fouls all day long. And then you've got players who are stronger, who take a lot more to take them down. And you think about a striker. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're going for your big man, 100%, that needs to be a big, strong striker. But if you're going for your pacey, the sort of player Rich is talking about here, your pace, your agility, I think strength is sort of irrelevant. And I almost think that agility could win you a couple of penalties in the box. You don't necessarily need that strength. So as much as I've got a striker within my team who bases himself about being a target forward, my other two aren't by any. I've got 3 up front, and my other 2 aren't by any stretch of the imagination. They're players who are the quick, nippy players. And I don't know. I think for the player you're describing, I think it might have been an error.
Okay. Let me finish off my other 2 and we'll see.
No. You have to stop on 3, so I'm right.
That's just how it works. See, I feel awful, Kev, but I'm very much siding with Callum on this one.
That's fine.
It's interesting, actually, because whereas you said earlier, agility isn't something that you ever factor in when you're looking at players. When it comes to forwards, strength for me is one of those. If it's there, it's a nice little added bonus.
Yeah.
But it's not. I would never back out of a signing purely on the basis of their strength attributes. Because again, I think back to some of the most successful forwards I've had, especially this FM23 as well. I'm thinking back to my Michelin side when I was doing the Scandi Triple Crown on FM23. And by the time I finally got there, they had a couple of strikers who, really, really high pace, really high agility. Okay, admittedly, they had good acceleration as well, Callum. I'll give you that. But in terms of the physical attributes, they couldn't jump. And I think their strength, both of them, very similar mold of player. I think the highest strength attribute for either of them was maybe a 5. Scored an absolute bucket load of goals. And a big part of that was because of the way that I had the team set up to play. But at the same time, I would never have not considered them for a spot in the team purely based on their strength. I think it's a nice added bonus if a player has it, but I would never judge the ability of a striker on it. So that's a really interesting one. I feel like I've gone for 2 physicals, and I feel like if I go for a 3rd physical, then it's just silly at this point, isn't it? So I'm not going to. Look at me go. I'm going to go for again, highly underrated anticipation. Because again, it just feeds into that model of the player that I'm building. They are quick, they are agile, and they have that ability to read the game so they can tell what's going on. This attribute reflects the player's ability to predict and react to events going on around them. So if they can be watching the play unfold, if they get the feeling that, right, I think the ball is going to be here in about 5 seconds time, I reckon I can just about get there. Yeah, it's those late runs, that's what it gives you the opportunity to do. Because it's, again, even as a striker, if you're using like a deep lying forward, for example, if you're using somebody who's like massively involved in the build up, they can go, right, okay, I've just shifted the ball out to one of the wide men. That wide man, his instructions are going to be cut it back to the attacking midfielder. I can cover that 5 or 10 yards in the next few seconds, and I can get to whereabouts I think the ball should be based on the way this move is working out. Or actually, no, they're overloading. There's a massive overload on one side, so I need to, actually, there's a little bit of space on the opposite. I can just start to out there all of a sudden, and then they're going to be putting themselves in a goal, in a goal scoring opportunity. So for me, that anticipation, that ability to read the game really, really well is hugely important. So I would say for me, that's more important than something like strength. So, you can tell my guy, he's a clever boy. My fictional player here, he's so clever. He's such a smart boy. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. He might score some goals as well. You never know. Callum, do you want to go again? Do you want to go next again?
Can I just say, I really liked that one, Rich. I think anticipation is a great shout. I think,
thank you.
It's. I said this before the pod started. I think the way I play Football Manager is quite laid back. I don't take anything too seriously. So that's why it's quite nice sometimes to have these sort of conversations where you look a little bit more in depth at things. And anticipation's not really one I've ever massively considered. But it is like that is an important attribute for a striker, especially. To be able to predict those situations, and it's the gamble, isn't it? That's ultimately what those players are going to be doing more of. They're going to be going, well, I'm going to get in the 6-yard box in case this cross comes in, and I think it's linked to off the ball. I think there are definite links there, but I like that attribute, and I think that's a really good one for a striker. My next two attributes, obviously, I'm going to say one to start off with, are more attributes that, as a manager, I like to see in a player. So it's not necessarily me saying these are the most important attributes in a striker, but if I am a manager, these are the ones that I like to build an ethos around. And the first one is heading. Now this, and I'm not, spoiler alert, linking it with jumping reach. I am purely talking about heading here because I don't particularly like a striker that cannot, when presented the chance, head that ball into the back of the net. I think it's something that I always enjoy doing. Like, I think heading, especially when you're not a very good footballer, heading can put you apart from others if you're actually willing to put your head on it and get your forehead in it, get a bit of power on it. It's a skill that will get you goals, without a doubt. I think without that heading attribute, you are taking away one of the key elements of your body that you score with. So I think having a 20 heading attribute when you're not considering finishing, you're assuming this striker knows how to put the ball in the back of the net with their feet. I think heading is imperative. I'm not pairing it with jumping reach because I think as a striker it's not necessarily important to be getting above the centre halves, because I think more often than not the centre half is going to be taller than your striker. But with my off the ball, with my acceleration, my striker is going to be in the positions the centre back's not. And that's why they don't necessarily need to be higher than the defender. They just need to have the ability with their head to put that header into the back of the net. So I'm going with heading next.
You make a compelling argument, don't you? You really, really do, you scallywag. It makes complete sense because, again, it's going to shock you as somebody who has spent a lot of time on this podcast bemoaning the fact that I can't get any performances out of target forwards ever. Heading is, again, another attribute that I do not take into consideration at all when it comes to a forward. Kev, interestingly enough, I thought heading was going to be the first one on your list, given your penchant for large meaty boys up front. Is heading also one that's going to be appearing on your list, Kev?
I'm going to give you my last two in one go.
Okay.
So we've got off the ball, getting in the right spot. We've got first touch, being able to keep possession. We've got a bit of strength to hold off the opposition and be secure. Of course it's going to be jumping, reach and heading. I was never going to go the other way. I was always going to be a big, meaty man. He's got to be 6'5". He's got to be able to compete in there. He's got to be on the near post headers on my corners. He's got to come and drop in deep and be involved in the play and link up the play and be able to hold the ball up and move it on simply and then get back in the box and be there for crosses coming in from your wide man. Of course it's going to be a target forward. It's got to be jumping reach. And if you can get both of them in jumping reach and heading in a target forward, because they're not mutually exclusive. You often find one without the other. But I had the Brazilian youngster Thierry Henry that came through in my rolling in the aisles save when I was at Stoke. And he was about 20 at the time. So he starts the game at 15, 16. And he was about 20. He had jumping reach and heading. And he could do it once you got there and you get in and you challenge those central defenders. He could actually head the ball at goal, and he was really good. Of course, it was going to be a target forward. Of course, it was going to be 6'5". Of course, it has to have jumping reach and heading. What are you lot thinking?
I'm so relieved.
Yeah, I was worried.
Yeah, I thought, given look, it wasn't the most traditional start to a podcast. I thought we might have gone a little bit off piste early doors, and it's gone a little bit strange. The fact that we got 3 attributes deep for Kev, and he hadn't even touched on jumping, reach, and heading. I was like, if he'd just been like, yeah, number 4, I'm going for flair. I'm like, what's going on? Sorry, what's happening? I'm so scared. Yeah, of course it makes sense, doesn't it? Because
Can I counter jumping reach?
You can.
I didn't understand the attribute of jumping reach. And I've had people tell me in streams about what jumping reach means. You have to be tall to have big jumping reach, which makes sense. Like, the taller you are, the higher you can jump, sort of thing. So your player would have to be tall to have that good jumping reach. So it's almost like you're choosing another attribute of height.
Is that necessarily the case, though?
Apparently it is. Apparently,
okay.
I didn't think it was, because I thought, for example, my example, once again, Everton, of course it is, I'd watched nothing else. Tim Cahill. Tim Cahill had incredible jumping reach. He leapt like a salmon, and yet he was about 5'10". I think, and I could be wrong, I'd love to check the Mad Scientist database. I think his jumping reach would still be regarded as low because he's 5'10".
It's 18, Callum. I'm looking at him now. Before you even said the name, I'd started looking him up.
So that doesn't make sense, because the jumping reach thing says the attribute reflects the highest point that a player can reach with his head, often influenced by a player's height. So I don't understand it as an attribute.
So ultimately, the way that I see that in that sentence is, the jumping reach is the spring that you can get and the height you can get. Now, the simple reality is, if you are 5'7" and you spring and you get to your height, you're not going to have the same height on the eventual high point that a 6'5" striker does if you've both got 18 jumping reach, because you're going to be jumping the same, but you've got additional inches on the other striker because you've got a big guy. So whilst I think that ultimately jumping reach will always favor having a 6'5" guy over a 5'9" guy or whatever, if you are a striker and, for example, you can get on back posts against fullbacks, jumping reach is still going to be vital even at 5'8", 5'9", because you're still able to get above what you're going up against and be able to give yourself a chance. But yes, for me personally, that's why it's got to be a big bloke. It's got to have the jumping reach, and it's got to have the heading at the end of it, because the trifecta means you get those opportunities. Now, also remember, we chose off the ball. And if you are also that slight quick of thought, for example, on those near post headers on corners, if you can be moving quickly into the right spot, you've got the jumping reach, you've got the heading, then I think you're onto an absolute winner in being able to exploit something within the FM24 match engine in terms of, you know, what those guys do on the near post. So that's my way of thought. So yes, I agree that it's not necessarily that you think jumping reach and 5'8" and that's going to be useful, but actually I think it is. Even for your advance forward or your pressing forward or your poach or whatever, there's some attributes in there that I still like to have. Strength is still one of them for me personally, because I feel like being able to put yourself about is a worthwhile thing. There are other bits, of course, but I think having that jumping reach and that heading, even if you're 5'9", can help you quite a lot in a lot of circumstances you find yourself in.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree,
sure.
by the way. Like it's just it's that correlation. Like I've literally just looked through my entire Slough team now, like looking how tall are they, what's their jumping reach, and everyone without fail. For example, like Hamza Cargbo, he's 6'6", his jumping reach is 18. Owen Gallagher, he's 5'9", his jumping reach is 9, and that does make sense because. But then I suppose you have the freaks of nature who are, regardless of their height, have got that ridiculous, like Tim Cahill, have got that ridiculous spring on them. And so they can, I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo was famed for, you know, being able to literally fly for a little while, wasn't he, in the air? Like it's, so I suppose, I mean, ultimately we are creating a footballer here. So it does work. But I suppose to the normal footballer, you'd have to be sort of above 6 foot to be able to get to that 20 jumping reach. In reality, he'd probably have to be about 6'9", wouldn't he? To have 20 jumping reach.
Well,
that's amazing.
Imagine it.
Doesn't it though? Doesn't it? That play, careful, Kev
hot and bothered.
Need to get the Ribena out. Honestly, I think, Kev, looking at it, essentially what you have created is Tim Cahill. That's essentially what you've done. Because Tim Cahill, if we go through your key metrics once again, Kev, so it was strength, jumping reach, heading, off the ball, first touch, and off the ball. Now, if we go through Tim Cahill's attributes in those capacities, Tim Cahill has 19 heading, he has 14 first touch, he has 17 off the ball, he has 18 jumping reach, and he has 15 strength. So for me, as you say, it's the player's height is going to be impacted by that. But what that essentially means is that for my money, Tim Cahill is going to win headers against any player, I would say up to about 6'2", 6'3", with average jumping reach and heading. Because he's that much significantly higher. He's got a better vertical leap on him, and he's going to be better at actually the actual technical art of heading a football. Put your head through. You're holding a painter, you're holding a picture by the frame, and you're putting your head through it. That's what they was used to say when I was at school. That combined with the off the ball, which Tim Cahill say 17. Interesting enough, Tim Cahill, I would switch off the ball and anticipation in that regard, because you talk about your corners, you talk about your set pieces. Tim Cahill is going to be able to read where a ball is going. Like, you know, obviously it's straight off the trainer regardless, but he's going to know, which for me seems a little bit more like anticipation. So he's going to be able to, he's going to have the run on the ball. He's going to be up before the centre back. So if you've got like a 6'1", 6'2" centre back marking the near post from a set piece, Tim Cahill is on near the near post from set pieces. He's attacking that near post. He's going to be making that run. He's going to be up in the air, and he's going to be ready to head that ball before the centre back has read it and has managed to jump and get ahead on it, which means 9 out of 10 times Tim Cahill is winning that header. Now, if you've got 6'6" of centre back with 16 jumping reach, 16 heading, whatever it may be, they're going to beat Tim Cahill to the ball, because regardless of Tim Cahill's anticipation, his off the ball, his movement, his jumping reach, you've got a player who immediately is 6-7 inches taller than him, who's also going to be jumping. So that is a bit of a moot point. But if it's, I would say that jumping reach and heading are almost more advantageous on a player who is slightly smaller, because it's putting them on par with the bigger lads. Obviously, if he's already massive, if he's already 6'6", then it's done and dusted, isn't it? But essentially, Kev, you have created Tim Cahill.
Well, I mean, you say that, and I might have, But my intention was to
Mhm.
actually create Oliver Giroud. Now, if you look at
Yeah.
Oliver Giroud, he's got 17 jumping reach, 18 strength. He's got 16 off the ball. He's got first touch of 14. So that's, the one that's slightly lesser. And overall, I think does exactly what I would want him to do. And that's where my mind went in terms of who I'm trying to create in this particular instance, because he has also got that height. But yes, I absolutely see your point that if you can find them in slightly random combinations, in slightly different players, in slightly different positions, and you put him in my central midfield, Tim Cahill, that is, along with Oliver Giroud up front, along with a big burly central defender at the back, your set pieces are going to be lethal in terms of having these people on the end of it. Your defensive set pieces are going to be fantastic because you've got security at the back as well. And throughout the spine of your team, you've got strength and the ability to dominate another team physically. And I think there's something in that as well. So yeah, both cases kind of work out.
Absolutely. Kev, I completely agree with you on one of the key points you've made there. My mind also often goes towards Olivier Giroud. What an absolute dreamboat. What a disgustingly handsome man. How dare he? How dare he? Callum, obviously Kev's just dropped his final. Feel free to double up with your last ones if you would like to. I won't take it at all personally.
No, I mean I said before that I'm now not necessarily going for the best attributes of a striker, but more attributes that I'd want to see in a striker that plays for me. I'll be completely honest with you. I did put a joke one here, but we've all taken it very seriously, so I'm not going to do the joke one now.
No, go on. No, go on, Callum.
No.
Make the funny joke. Make the funny joke.
I'm not going to make the funny joke. I was going to choose long throws, but it's important for a striker. Anyway, it's not long throws now because I've changed. It's work rate. Now, work rate is purely from I don't know. Regardless of ability, I would want my players to go out there and give 110% in every single game. So if you've got a striker that has 20 work rate, in my opinion, that striker is going to get in more positions to score, especially with the attributes I've chosen, than someone with a work rate of 12. And because they're going to be constantly all game long, they're going to be getting into these areas. They're going to be trying. They're going to be, taking those chances. I'll be honest with you, you've fully sold anticipation to me, and anticipation probably would have been my sixth. Now you've sort of said it, because I think that would have worked with the striker I was trying to create. Because if you remember, finishing and composure is two attributes that we were disregarding. So you would assume they're pretty decent as well. So if you add those as like the sixth and seventh attribute to my striker, I think he's going to get some serious goals, as would, I'm sure, your two strikers. Mine would just get more. So because he'd be working hard. The 98th minute, when they hold up 12 minutes of added time, mine's still going like the clappers, running into the channels, getting that ball. So he'd be a defender's nightmare. And yes, I'm going to go with work rate. Okay.
Work rate was on. I was on the fence with work rate, because I think very, very much like, we've made the comparisons already between, anticipation and off the ball, for example. Work rate is another one that I was kind of on the cusp of. I was on the cusp with work rate. Again, I like it. I like it as a core concept. If that player is willing to, like I say, it reflects the player's willingness to work to his full capacity, going above and beyond the Call of Duty Black Ops, which I think is wonderful. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Like I said, I don't necessarily think it's the best attribute.
No,
but it's an attribute that I would want to. If I was an actual manager of a football team, I would rather work ethic over ability. Because I'd get way more satisfaction managing a team who run through walls for me every Saturday, rather than a team who are really technically gifted but throw their dummies out when they're 3-0 down. Like that. I think that's how I'm seeing it anyway.
Yeah.
See, I do totally agree. Work rate is essential through the team. I absolutely get that. For purely the striking position, I'm much more interested in putting somebody at the heart of my striker that basically anybody that approaches him, he looks at them, glares at them and says, no, leave me alone. And that's the only work he has to do. And they go, okay, that's it. Other than that, I get it. No, I do. I do see work rate as a really important metric through a collective of players, because you're going to be able to potentially get on the pitch and just keep doing that for longer than the opposition do. And I think it's really vitally important. Absolutely.
Interestingly, Rich said before, Kev, that your striker is Tim Cahill. I actually disagree. I've been doing some Googling while we've been talking, and I believe your striker is actually a grizzly bear. Literally a grizzly bear. And I think all the attributes do line up, because grizzly bear here, strength 20. So already, aligns with yours. Off the ball, the weaker for the grizzly bear, only a 13. But off the mark, acceleration, that grizzly bear is going to catch you. It's going to catch you.
Exactly.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And ultimately, he's just a bit angry as well.
Angry, yeah.
Well, if it's an animal, surely Callum's going to try and play it in goal. So
I knew there would be something coming back about the mammoth. Unbelievable.
Oh man, you've ruined everything. Oh, you scamp. I should have just made you go for John Ratzenberger, the voice of Manny the Mammoth, but here we are. The people have spoken. I'm gonna, for my next attribute, I'm going to go for the one that I chose over work rate. Ironically, again, it's that anticipation off the ball, one or the other. I think for me, I've gone for determination. I've gone for determination. The attribute reflects the player's commitment to succeed and do his very best on and off the pitch. My main focus of this is obviously on, because that's what we're trying to accomplish here. We're trying to accomplish somebody who is the best version of themselves they can be on the pitch, and they want goals. Goals is the key there. But obviously, if you're looking about it in the wider context of an FM save, it's the off the pitch as well. Like we've all done it. We've all set the parameters to look for wonder kids at some point, haven't we? And when you find a wonder kid, either be it through scouting or be it through a very specific way of scouting that you can do, that they just weirdly all pop up. When you set those parameters, you're looking for those players. You find that wonder kid. You go, oh, you get that scout report back. Oh, boss, I've just found this striker. Weirdly enough, they're from South America and they're 15. They're going to be great. And you click on them, you're like, oh, already the pace is great. The agility is phenomenal. The anticipation is incredible. Oh, they've got 3 determination. There's just no point, because they're never going to reach that full potential because of their personality type. The determination is low. It's not going to work. Plus, that's going to be reflected on the pitch. What you don't want is somebody with all the ability in the world, but just that petulant streak running through them. Can they do it on a rainy Tuesday night at Stoke? Well, I'm paying them, admittedly, because they are an Argentinian wonder kid. I'm paying them £100 a week to try. So I'd expect £100 a week worth of effort. Thank you very much. What do you mean that the next highest paid striker at the club is on 40 grand? No, you're just misreading the payslips wrong. It's, for me, if you find a player with high determination, and again, we're basing this on the fact that this player, they're going to have these perfect 20s in our chosen attributes. The rest of them, for the sake of argument here, are going to be average. They're going to be comparatively average. If like we said, Premier League player, 11s, 12s, maybe, in the other important ones. If you've got that 20 determination, they are going to run for you for 90 minutes. They're going to try their absolute best, regardless of, cup game against, 7th tier opposition or Champions League qualifier, make or break. That high determination is going to have such a positive impact on everything else I think that player's going to do on the pitch. For me, determination edges work rate because it just goes a little bit deeper and it affects a few more things. So that's kind of that's where I fell with that one. Which makes
I think I've done determination dirty, to be honest, because I think a lot of the time it's in my searches and I haven't included it here. Now, I think there's a sort of a mental perception from my sort of point of view that it's more the sort of central defender, defensive midfielder type that I want to have it. But you are absolutely spot on. there are very few occasions, wherever a player plays, if they are 16 and in my youth intake and they've got determination of 7, they don't really get considered from my point of view, particularly. There has to be that kind of, especially in those youngsters coming through. If they've got determination of, 12 or above at the age of 15, then I think they've got a chance because they are going to be putting absolutely everything into it. So I've probably done it dirty a little bit. It's just not that specific attribute that I look at for a striker necessarily, but pretty much in youngsters and defenders and ball winners and stuff. Absolutely, definitely.
I think as well, it's an attribute, like you say, is the context of your save. So like my save, the reality is, regardless of their determination, being in non-league, the facilities aren't there, the funding's not there. The reality is they're probably not going to get to the heights, regardless of they might get nearer with better determination, but the reality is that, whereas if you're managing a Premier League club, and as you say, your example of signing a wonder kid from South America, 100%, like it does make a lot of sense. And I suppose, like, it's not something I majorly consider until I get into the upper echelons of my save and start getting nearer, the elite, if you like, which I didn't even do last year. So I haven't thought about it for at least 2 game cycles now. So yeah, there's you could make a strong argument for most attributes, really, couldn't you? Like, I touching back on work rate, I wonder whether work rate should be considered as a physical attribute as much as a mental, because the work rate is almost the ability to work as much as it is in your head. It's also your body, isn't it? You might think, oh, I can run all day, but if your body doesn't, so I think a lot of the attributes are paired with others. So, it's all well and good. For example, jumping, reach and heading are the best example of it, because if you can jump and touch the ceiling, but when you get there, you've got a head like a 50p and it goes wherever, it's irrelevant, isn't it? And so there's so many of these, like I say, and that's why I went for like heading rather than heading and jumping reach, because I only had 5 attributes to choose from. And if I was going to choose one, I would just choose heading. I wouldn't just choose jumping reach. And there's quite a few within this that sort of, finishing and composure are obviously paramount to a striker, aren't they? But if your finishing was 3 and you've got anticipation off the ball, that's great, because you get in there and then you're missing, and so it's so interesting, because ultimately I think what I'm trying to sort of summarize our whole segment of as host of the episode is what I'm trying to say is, actually, this whole thing, 5 isn't enough. So
it's not.
Despite the fact we have got, you could argue we've got 7 because we didn't consider finishing composure, but let's say 5 for argument's sake. The player still would be fundamentally flawed. Like they would have the elements you want, but then if they get on the ball, none of our strikers can pass the ball. None of them can cross the ball in if they're out wide.
Well, I've actually still got 1 left to choose, so I think you'll find maybe they can. I think you'll find maybe they can, Callum.
On my defense, I'm off the clock and I didn't do counting today, Rich. So,
it's true. It's true.
The orders are all over the place. I don't know what's going on.
I blame the host.
When's Jeb's turn?
It's the hosting.
It is. I agree. But exactly. It's my first time, Rich. Come on, cut me some slack.
Okay, I think you're doing a great job, pal.
My next one will be much better.
next week. It's funny you should mention things like crossing and passing.
Yeah,
you can't choose. You can't choose. It's funny you should mention those, because obviously, my final attribute, because we've done 2 physical, we've done pace, and we've done agility, we've done 2 mental, we've done anticipation, and we've done determination. Obviously, my final key, if I could have a perfect attribute, would obviously be dribbling, because if they've got high pace, high agility, but they can't keep the ball more than 2 yards away from their foot, what's the point? Like, what is the point? There's no point in being that technically proficient, but not having the actual ability to keep the ball in front of you. when it matters. That close control is constantly going to be important. Who cares about passing and crossing? Not me. It's a striker. I'm not creating Ollie Watkins here. I'm creating somebody who can keep the ball glued to that foot. So when they're running at speed, when they're actually on the ball, they are on the ball, rather than just, it's that lackadaisical dribbling where they'll just knock it a couple of yards ahead of them. All it takes is somebody just to put a foot out and you've immediately lost possession of the ball. So,
Rich.
Hello, Kev.
Have you fallen into the modern day trap of asking your strikers to all play out on the left wing as an inside forward?
No, God, no, never.
Because that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to me, that you've
Never.
created the perfect inside forward.
No. I just want somebody who's through the middle, Kev. My strikers through the middle, no messing around
until halfway through the season, when you realise he can't play through the middle and he's got to play out wide.
Yeah.
No, I double. That's when I double down. So, no, you're terrible at this, but you're going to get better. That's the important.
You were aware we were choosing not a winger this week.
No, it's definitely a striker. Definitely a striker. Okay. You put right again. Case and point. Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford won me, to all intents and purposes, the Premier League on the network save. Marcus Rashford, who traditionally is played as an inside forward, left winger. Did I play him at left wing, Kev? No, I played him through the middle every single game. Advanced forward, lone striker, through the middle. Specific instructions on him to not drift out wide, to not get out onto the flanks. His instructions were run through the middle. And he scored. I've had a golden boot out of him one season, I'm pretty sure. And he was my top scorer for me when I won the league. So that's what I did. I took those attributes and I took that player and I was like, right, that's not going to, playing you out wide isn't going to get the best out of you. You play inside. You are the advanced forward in my formation. Fair. And he did brilliantly. So yes, you could argue that a lot of these attributes, would be very, very useful if he was a winger. But for me, through the middle, did an absolutely fantastic job because he got on the ball, very, very rarely tackled when he was running through the middle, the middle of the pitch, not the wide bits of the pitch. He's not allowed out there. I've told him, I show him a map of the pitch, and it's only as wide as the penalty areas, and just either side, it's like an old map. It just says there be monsters, and he's like, oh no, I don't like monsters. I'm just going to stay in the middle. Cheers, gaffer. And he's great. He's been great at it. So for me, that good dribbling on top of everything else, you've got an absolute menace as a striker. It's good. It's good.
I think agility and dribbling are too close. Because, I mean, I think initially when you were talking about agility, I sort of thought, okay, so, on the ball, he's going to be in and around. But it's actually not. It's like when I think you already read it, but it's stopping and starting at varying different levels of speed, both on and off the ball. So you see, but then dribbling is the ability to run with the ball and manipulate it under close control. Is that not the same thing? So it's stopping and starting. I don't know. I feel like they overlap hugely. Dribbling.
See, I would see. For me, I would use somebody like Erling Haaland as the example of that, because he's very, very quick. He's got great agility, but he's not a technically proficient dribbler of the football. When you see Erling Haaland running, he will go very, very fast and he can change direction when he's running, but that ball is never close to his foot. That ball is always out ahead of him. And, he is then relying on that pace. And okay, admittedly, he's relying on that strength because he will steamroll people. But to me, if you can keep the ball close to your foot while you're doing that, you have got somebody who is like such a threat as a goal scorer. It's all you can. If you can kick the ball ahead of you and run onto it and chase somebody down, fantastic. But somebody who can run at that speed, change direction, manipulate, move the ball around, but keep the ball close to your foot, it makes it so much harder to tackle. Lionel Messi, there you go. There's a wonderful example. Somebody who's got ridiculously high agility, ridiculously good dribbling as a professional footballer. And he's so hard to tackle because he's so quick, keeps the ball close to his foot. And, he can manipulate, he can twist, he can turn, he can go in all the different directions, and he can keep the ball on his foot at the same time. That's where I see them kind of, meshing together. I don't think
I don't
without
disagree
one,
with
the
you.
other works as well.
I mean, I don't disagree. It's just I question whether they complement each other or they overlap in what they're doing. I suppose. I think the definition of running with different levels of speed, both on and off the ball. I feel I don't know. And then the dribbling is manipulated under close control. Yeah, I just feel like as an attribute, the way they described it is really, really similar. I don't like none of the rest of them are like the physicals are more your body. It's how you can do things, whereas the technicals are with the ball. So I don't know whether agility should be mentioning on the. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking things, but I did just look at Haaland. You were spot on. His agility is higher than his dribbling. On my game, anyway, he's 29 and his agility is 17 and his dribbling is 14. So you would assume he's more agile at turning in quick spaces than he is with the ball. I suppose is what you'd read into that. But in an ideal world, you'd have more. I just don't know whether I'd have them both within a 5. But it's your striker, not mine, so it's fun.
Exactly. And like you've accurately said in your wonderful summary, which came 5 minutes
too early.
Very good. Very, very good. There are at least 2 or 3 different attributes that, as Kev has rightly said, we've done some of them dirty. We absolutely have, because you could make the compelling argument that there are some of these that are as important, if not more so, than some of the ones that we have chosen. And if you feel that way about it, audience, let us know. What have we missed that's really, really important? If you've been listening to this and you automatically assumed, as I correctly did with Kev, well, Kev's clearly going to have jumping reach and he's going to have heading on his. Of course he is. If you're thinking, oh, well, they're clearly going to talk about, decision making. They're clearly going to talk about, stamina. And we haven't. And you're screaming at your phone going, oh my God, what have they done? How have they missed these off? Let us know. We would like to know. It's subjective.
What are your 5?
But it's very important. Give us your 5. Yeah, tell us your 5. Tell us what we've got right. Tell us what got wrong. We would like to know. I won't take it as personally as I might have implied that I would at the start of the podcast. So please, please do. Before we kind of wrap up talking about strikers, the plan was originally at the start of the podcast talk about strikers and defenders. But my goodness, we had some opinions on strikers. My goodness, we had some opinions on strikers. Before we wrap this section up, I did say I was looking at Samuel Eto'o's attributes as the debate, just as a reminder of what they are and what makes players good, potentially good and bad. We said at the start of the podcast, we were negating the 2 obvious ones for a striker, which obviously from our points of view are finishing and composure. Samuel Eto'o, the man who in my first season with Barcelona, I think he scored something ridiculous, like about 31 goals in about 38 games in all competitions because of injuries and everything else, but still an incredibly high tally of goals. Samuel Eto'o's finishing is 17, which isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. Strike with 17 finishing, you're looking easily at double-digit goals every single season. You'd be expecting them with an attribute that high. His composure is an absolutely incredible 10. He's the lead. I've never noticed that about him before.
Wow.
I have never noticed that about Samuel Eto'o. A composure rating of 10. And composure to the point where it's, we all use the SAS skin, which I think we might have even said before. Is the SAS mask skin is pretty much the official skin of the Football Manager Therapy podcast. It's wonderful.
Yep.
In my custom DNA section, which I try and keep as a metric for a lot of the players that I sign, I've got composure on there. It's one of the it's one of the mental attributes that I generally speaking will try and focus on when I'm looking at players. Eto'o with 10 seems obscenely low, but has continued to perform at an incredibly high level across a multitude of competitions for me all season long. So, well, when he's been fit and hasn't been injured, obviously, but 10 seems really, really low for somebody, especially like a Samuel Eto'o.
For me, I don't quite understand that because my recollection of Eto'o was how good he was, etc. So it seemed a bit of an anomaly. The one player that IRL, I immediately think if that had been them, I'd kind of understand it because of their IRL stuff. Was Andy Cole when he first showed up at Man United. Seemed to be under the illusion that you need to give him 6 chances before he'd take one. And it's that kind of thought process that if it had been him, that he's got this brilliant finish, but actually the composure on it is just a little bit off. And so occasionally he takes 3 or 4 to get one in. I kind of get it. But Samuel Eto'o seemed to be a bit of a beast to my mind. But that's an interesting one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Darwin Núñez is another one that springs to mind based on form this season. Absolutely phenomenal footballer. He's got the physical game down to when his finishing is fantastic, but it's the amount of times he hits the woodwork, the amount of times that he misses the easier chances. Like, you up his composure. I mean, I'm looking at retro database stuff here, so as I say, he doesn't even exist at this point in history. Just a twinkle in his dad's eye. But I guarantee his composure is not as high. I'd be surprised.
On my game, I'm in 2029, so it might have altered slightly, but he's 12 composure on my game.
Yeah, which seems like it's probably, you'd imagine, has possibly gone up as the game has progressed. But yeah, that's a baffling one to me. I picked it up as looking at all the other bits and pieces. Like, I haven't really oh no, that's low. That's really, really low. You also can't do long throws either, Callum. So he's out.
Oh, what's the point then?
Gonna have to sell him. Oh well, yeah. What a waste of time. That was significantly more insightful than I thought it was going to be, but I mean that in a very positive way. Hey, as it turns out, sometimes it sounds like we know what we're talking about. Really, really weird, that, isn't it? Really, really weird. Before we start to wrap up podcast, I feel like it would be remiss of us to not ask the question of Callum. How's it going? You know, you've been working away. You've been doing little bits of streams. You've been YouTubing. How's Slough Town?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've got no idea when I last updated the podcast, and I'm in season 7. So there's a lot of story to tell. However, there's not a lot of success to tell, so I can tell you that bit quite quickly. We're in the Vanarama National League still, so we've had one promotion. Unbelievably, it was through a playoff. But yeah, we've just started season 7 now. I'm finding it really tricky. So I put rules on it this time round to make it a region air save, and I'm allowed 3 players who are not in the region. The region is basically the south of England. It's not even all of the south of England. It's taken out like Cornwall and Devon, and it's taken out like East Anglia and stuff. So it's like the very middle of the south of England. I might have set it too hard if I'm being completely honest. And interestingly, I did put a poll out on Twitter this week, sort of saying, shall I alter the rules? And there was 50 odd people voted, and it came out like Brexit. It was like 49-51%. So there was like no decision on it really, which is always helpful. I've decided to stick with the original rules, but I mentioned before we started the pod, I've started doing a little bit of offline FMing, which has been an absolute delight to play the game I love. It's been just so enjoyable because I just can't stream as much as I used to. It's just not a reality. Hence why I'm not on the pod as much as I used to be, because it's just not a reality at the moment. So, but something I can do once everyone's gone to bed is I can play Football Manager for an hour or so now, and I couldn't stream it because I'll wake everyone up. So, so you know, I play it now and I record it and put it on YouTube, and it's been a really enjoyable experience. It's completely different to Twitch in a lot of ways, but it has been really fun. And I would encourage you, if you have watched any of my Twitch stuff, to go over to the YouTube and give it a go. I feel like now I'm hitting my stride with it. It's taken me about 20 episodes, but I'm hitting my stride with the series now. But that's more content creation. Slough, we're in the Vanarama National League. There's been a running joke about playoffs. I lost 3 playoffs in the Vanarama South before I won 1. Last year I lost 6, so it's improvement. I'm in season 7, and for context, last year season 7 was the year I finally got out of the Vanarama South. So I'm technically ahead of where I was, sort of, in a way. But yeah, we've started the season really, really well. I've literally put out a video this morning. We're actually unbeaten in the start of season 7. We've won all 6 games. And I've got to the point now where I think my squad is ready. I think I've made enough signings and enough tweaks to the squad where you know, when you know a team, you know exactly where you need to improve. And when you've got quite stringent rules on it, it's difficult because it's all well and good knowing that you have an error in the team and an area you need to improve. But when you can only buy them from the central south of England, it becomes a little bit trickier. But I've bought a centre-back in particular. I've bought in Michael Stickland, who is from Reading, and he has all the attributes we would have talked about today, to be honest with you, for a centre-back. Obviously, with regards to Vanarama national level, I've got a striker up front called Hamzad Kargbo, who is Kev's dream. He's 6'6". He's a target forward. He is Slough Town's all-time top goal scorer now, with about 150 goals. And I signed him. He is a wonderful man. And at 27, I've still got a few years left of him. So he's pretty pivotal. I've started playing with 3 up front, which I've never really done before. But it gives me the sort of option to have one pacey man, one big man, and one sort of ball player in there. And it's been really good. But I'm getting to the point now where new gens are as common as real players, and it's when for me it's when the save starts getting really fun, when you start sort of integrating those players in, because you know, you don't know how good or bad they're going to be in reality. Whereas, you know, when you're getting those real players in, the chances are if you're getting them in from the Arsenal youth system, they're probably going to be quite good, you know, and it's that sort of way. But yeah, I mean, the overarching thing for Slough is I'm just having a wonderful time. I feel like, as I say, I feel like I've been very general here because there is too much. There is too much. If I genuinely did a Slough update, we would be here for another half hour, and nobody wants that. So basically, it's great. Come and watch it. I'll tell you all about all the players, all the stories that we've got. I've got a central midfielder called Andy Stockbridge, who is the best midfielder potentially in the world. And he's in the Vanarama National League. So, you know, obviously you want to come and see him. First touch of 16 and passing of 16 in the National League. Need I say more? I say more?
Disgusting.
It is disgusting. It's criminal. I am being investigated for it. But no, it's just I'm really, really enjoying the save, and yeah, who knows? This could be the year, although I do say every year, but this could be the year that we finally get in the Football League. And then I feel like the save really opens up. Well, as you get into League Two, I probably said the exact same thing on the pod last year. The non-leagues are so hard to get out of. You can be comfortably the 3rd best team in the division. In fact, you can even be comfortably the 2nd best team in the division and still not get out of the playoffs. It's such a tricky system to get out of. And even once you've got out of one of them, you've got another one to get out of. You know, you get out of the South and then you've got the National. It's the exact same system. And then you go into League Two and magically there's 3 automatic promotion places and a playoff. It's treating you. You know, it really is. And I'm so desperate to not have 5 subs anymore. I'm so sick of 5 subs because they have to play everywhere. You have to have, you know, you can't just have a right back on the bench. That's not good enough. He needs, like, currently my bench. This is how I'll finish it. I'll briefly say my bench. So my first sub could play right back, centre back, right wing back, and defensive midfield. My next one could play centre back, defensive midfield, and centre mid. My next one could play defensive mid, centre mid, and attacking mid. My next one could play left wing, left mid, centre mid, attacking mid, right wing, and attacking mid. And the last one can play left wing and striker. They basically can play every position on the pitch because they've only got 5 subs. It's not fair. It's not fair. They have to play everywhere. So bless you. If you come to my club and you're like, I'm a really good striker, that's great, but you're not going to make it because you've got to be able to play at least 3 other positions to be able to.
And one of them needs to be goalkeeper.
Exactly. Ideally, you need to be able to play in goal as well. But yeah, I'm having a wonderful time, and it's great. It's great.
Fantastic.
I'm glad to hear it, pal. I'm glad to hear it. Honestly, the Slough updates and the Slough, just in general, it's one of my favourite things. Like there was a Football Manager, because obviously last Friday at the time of recording was it was National Football Shirt Day, and Football Manager tweeted out, they were like, "Hey, have you bought a shirt based around a Football Manager save?" And of course, everyone that plays Football Manager was like, "Yes, of course I have." And I put a little picture up of here's my Kashima Antler shirt from when I was managing in the J League. I was driving home that day, and then I thought to myself, actually, That's not. I've bought a shirt based on somebody else's football manager save. I've got a Slough Town shirt purely because of Callum. I'm so invested, and I'm invested this year as well, as I was last. I feel like this is going to be your year, Callum. What we could do here, we could do a bit of a hand at season 7 is going to be your year, and we can change it. We can do all sorts with that. So it's into season 12.
I can't do the save twice and not like win stuff. Surely, like I am genuinely a little bit worried it's going to happen again. Is there any content creator who's created content around the same club over 2 game cycles and not even got to the Premier League? Like the best thing I did last season was win the Johnson penchant, the Papa John's, whatever it's called. Like
up the pizza cup.
It's up the pizza cup. Like honestly, it's ridiculous. And whenever I appreciate I can't stream as much, make content as much as others, but when people are doing ultimately the same save, and they've already won the Premier League, and I'm hearing, I'm like, I might get out of the National League. It's like, it's ridiculous. It's really demoralizing. But at the same time, I don't sell myself as being the best Football Manager player of all time. I sell myself as selling a narrative, and I'll always be that way. And hopefully that's what you would enjoy if you come and watch any of my content.
Yep,
that's what I'm into. It's what I like. Look, I wish you nothing but the best with it, and I know that it's going to be great. And this is going to be your year, mate. This is going to be your year. I have nothing but faith in you. Nothing but faith in you. But watch Callum's YouTube. He'll plug it at the end. Watch the YouTubes. Watch the streams when you can. We have a lovely time. Lads, I don't know about the two of you, but that very much feels like a podcast to me.
Cool. I mean, the first 10 minutes, I have no idea. But other than that, I think it definitely went pretty well.
Hey, but look at us. I think we got it back on the tracks by the end. I think we rallied and recovered, and I'm really, really proud of us and what we've accomplished today. Before we go, I think it's only fair we get the chance to tell the people where we're going to be this week. So starting off with you, Kev, rolling in the aisles. Now, an old firm, Kev. Where can the people find you making that content with your new club?
Yeah, I am not at Stoke City anymore. So come and join me up in Scotland, where hopefully the intention is to win some stuff. We'll see. But it's going to be a fun one. You can find me at the United City FM on Twitch every weekday afternoon, 3 till 5 p.m. And it's going to be an interesting ride for the next few seasons up in Scotland. Can we win a few titles and then potentially find our way back down south again? Who knows? We will see. But that's where you can find me.
We absolutely will. Callum, Slough, the internet, whereabouts?
So I literally released a video today at 8 o'clock for Slough. So if you head over to Callum on YouTube, I'm trying my best to put more stuff up on there. I think 3 or 4 videos in the last couple of weeks. So I'm doing okay there. And I stream on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Most weeks, sometimes I squeeze a weekend in, but it tends to be if I squeeze a weekend in, I can't do the pod. So basically, if I'm not on the podcast that week, it's probably because I was streaming, and then if I'm on the podcast, it's probably because I haven't streamed. Just by working out law of averages. But I'm trying my best to get more and more stuff out there. But it turns out I quite enjoy spending time with my daughter. So it's a tricky balance, isn't it? Yeah,
it's weird, isn't it?
It is. How about you, Rich? Where can we find you?
Twitch.tv/RichardOwens.fm. Cheers, Colton. Rich Owens FM on the Twitch and the Twitter and all the other places. Last week we brought back What's the Story, Former Glory, and then just work has been really hectic, so I just haven't had the time of an evening stream as much as I would like, but it will be back this week. The night depends on other things that may be happening for other members of podcast. Obviously, we brought back the network game last Thursday evening, which was an absolute treat, and it all went completely normally, and everything was fine.
Of course.
Didn't go a bit weird a couple of hours in. No. Definitely not. If you would like to watch the network game this week, bear with us because of some possible commitments for a member of podcast, but we'll put it out on the socials. So it'll either be happening, if you're listening to this now, tomorrow night, which is Monday. So if you're on Patreon and you're listening to this in the daytime, think, I'd like to watch the network save Monday. Otherwise, potentially Thursday, but keep an eye. We'll advertise it on the social media.
More
We'll have a
likely
lovely time doing
Thursday.
that. More likely Thursday, I think, is the most realistic way of putting it. So I'll be streaming Mondays and Thursdays regardless, because that's just what I do. And what a good time we all have. Absolutely we do. Lads, I think that quite astutely wraps up some podcast.
It does, and I personally think Callum's done a great job at hosting.
Thanks, Kev. Thank you.
Well done, Callum.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank
really,
you.
Really proud of you. Thanks for doing
something
such
for
a
me
good
to
job
aspire
and
to,
showing
you know. Thanks.
Yeah, and me.
Yeah.
God, he's good, isn't he? Oh, handsome as well.
Stop it. Stop it.
Absolutely. But thank you, audience, very much for joining us, because without you there is no podcast. It gets a bit weird if there's no audience, because we're just talking to ourselves. So thank you, we appreciate you enormously, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of Football Manager Therapy. We will see you on the next one. Take care. Love you lots. Bye bye.
In the world of tactics and transfers, there's a therapy zone where the drama unfolds like a soap opera in zones. Rich, Kev, Jeb, and Callum bringing wisdom and laughs, but let's not forget Matt and Tony, the heroes of the past. With their shiny suits and feathered hair, the 80s was their game. Now we carry the torch, continuing their thing. Each week we dive into the depths of Football Manager's soul, analyzing tactics and sharing tales, making the game whole. Welcome to Football Manager Therapy, where the drama never stops. It's a podcast soap opera with twists, turns, and plot hops. Rich, Kev, Jeb, and Callum, voices we adore, keeping the spirit alive like never before.